Hi, are you ready for some bedtime stories? Bernard and I are, and you might notice a bit of a theme with this week's program. So let's get started with a story about a turkey train. This is written by Steve Metzger and illustrated by Jim Pilat, and it's published by Cartwheel Books. Wake up, Betty, Bill, and Jane. Get ready for the turkey train. Buy your tickets in Fort Wayne and all aboard the turkey train. Feathers ruffled? Don't complain. Find your seat on the turkey train. Games and puzzles for your brain. Make new friends on the turkey train. Gobble, gobble, tasty grain. Time for lunch on the turkey train. Outside the window, pouring rain, warm and snug in the turkey train. Rock and rollers entertain, sing and dance on the turkey train. Stopping now near Lake Champlain, don't be late for the turkey train. Over mountains, through the plain, lots to see on the turkey train. The engineer applied the brakes, the turkey train slowed down. From her window, Betty said, "We're here, I see the town." The turkey train stopped at last, the doors all opened wide. Turkeys large and turkeys small quickly raced outside. Turkeys skating, turkeys skiing, sledding down a hill. Turkeys having snowball fights, whoops! One just hit Bill. The turkeys played all afternoon until the sky grew black. "We've had so much fun," said Jane, "but now we must go back." The turkeys were all in their seats. No one could complain, 'cause everyone was fast asleep on the turkey train. Do you think we could wake them up to have them jump on a bed? There were 5 silly turkeys who were jumping on the bed. When one fell off, oh, he bumped his head. So his mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, "No more turkeys jumping on the bed." So 4 silly turkeys were jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. So mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, "No more turkeys jumping on the bed." So 3 silly turkeys were jumping on the bed. One fell off and bumped his head. So his mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, "No more turkeys jumping on the bed." So 2 silly turkeys were jumping on the bed. One fell off and he bumped his head. So his mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, "No more turkeys jumping on the bed." So that leaves 1 little turkey, a silly one indeed. He was jumping on the bed. He fell off and bumped his head. So his mama called the doctor, and the doctor said, "No more turkeys jumping on the bed." Well, you can never have too many turkeys, or can you? Because that's the name of this book, Too Many Turkeys. It's written by Linda White and illustrated by Megan Lloyd. And it's published by Holiday House. Now, one cold, rainy afternoon, a little lost turkey stumbled into Fred and Bella's tiny yard. Can you see him? There he is. "Fred," Bella cried, "come run this turkey off. Why, he'll eat my garden." "Not if we feed him." Fred cradled the scared poult in his long fingers. "Oh, turkeys make an infernal mess," Belle muttered. Well, Fred took a gander at the gangly poult. That's what they call a baby turkey, I guess. "He looks just like Uncle Buford. That's what I'm going to call him." So right then and there, Buford adopted Fred as his new mama. Fred built Buford a fine house, and he fed him. And to Belle's satisfaction, he always cleaned up Buford's mess. Now Belle's flowers flourished and her garden vegetables grew and her berries produced bountifully. But this year, one new ingredient made them grow, well, better than ever. Hardly a day passed that a gardener didn't stop by Fred and Belle's square little house shaded by the huge oak tree to ask, "What's your secret?" Belle just smiled. "My secret formula fertilizer. A little of this and a smidge of that," was all that she would say. Now the day came for Belle's annual birdhouse convention. Fred set the houses she'd made and her suitcases in the old Plymouth. That was their car. "Remember, water the gardens every day," Belle said. "I'll take care of everything," Fred assured her. "See you in a few days," she called, rumbling down the drive. Now Belle hadn't been gone an hour when Fred noticed Buford staring into a field. Uh-oh. There was a wild hen turkey strutting straight for Belle's lush cucumbers. "Shoo!" Fred said. "Run along. We've already got us a turkey." But the next day, the hen was back, and with her, more than a dozen others, all sampling Belle's garden. Oh, Fred ran at them, flapping his arms. "Out of there!" he shouted. The turkeys flitted from one patch to another, but none departed. Fred loped to the truck, and he turned up the radio to a thunderous volume. But the birds did not retreat. Those turkeys started swaying to the music. Finally, Fred fluttered his wings, he wangled his knees, and he turkey-trotted those birds right back into the woods. "Don't come back," he yelled. Well, the next day, Fred propped up leaning delphiniums. He snipped broken tomato branches and pinched spoiled grapes. He fed Buford, and just as he was shoveling turkey droppings into the barrel behind the barn, he heard something. A flip, a flop, a flutter. Can you guess? Turkeys. "No!" cried Fred. Snatching Buford's bowl from under him, he dashed about the yard. "Eat this!" he shouted, trailing bits of Buford's dinner toward the truck. "Gobble, gobble!" Buford shrilled. "Gobble, gobble, gobble!" the turkeys hollered, flailing after Fred. "Come on, Buford!" Fred hurled the bowl into the truck bed. "We'll drive them so far away they'll never find their way back." Well, hordes of turkeys settled into the truck bed. Fred jolted the truck out of the yard. Turkeys clung tight as Fred careened up hills and barreled down dales for 20 miles. And when Fred pulled over, those dizzy turkeys flopped onto the ground. I think I've got pages stuck together. There we go. Well, that night, Fred slept peacefully, knowing Belle's gardens were safe. But then, at the first rays of morning sun peeking through the bedroom, Buford gobbled anxiously. Fred ran downstairs, and with Buford close behind, he burst through the back door to find, are you ready? Hundreds of turkeys swarming the yard. Fred let out a howl. He ran at the turkeys, and feathers flew. Plops dropped. His foot hit a slimy mess that sent him flying. The ruckus brought neighbors from every direction. "What am I going to do?" he cried. The entire place was a sea of plump, round turkeys. They roosted in the bird bath, fouled the porch rails, and squatted in Belle's rocker. Oh, dear. Oh my goodness, I want to find out what's happening and I can't turn the page. I'm sure that there are 2 pages there. We're going to cut that part. Fred struggled up. He took a deep breath and turned to the gawking neighbors. "If you'll help me, I'll tell you Belle's gardening secret." "Sure," they agreed eagerly. "It's Buford," said Fred, winking at the turkey. "When I clean up after him, I put the stuff in a barrel. We add yard and garden clippings and table scraps too. Belle mixes it and lets it set." The neighbors pinched their noses as they neared the barrel. "Buford eats insects that would rather devour the plants. He's scratching for them loosens the soil so the water goes deep. Yep, to have a garden like Belle's, you gotta have a turkey." "Well, could we have one of yours?" folks asked. "Oh, we could spare a few," said Fred, smiling, and he headed to the barn for feed sacks and shovels. Then he and his neighbors filled the sacks with turkey plop and garden debris until the yard was prim and proper once more. And when folks headed home, Fred made sure each one carried a handful of Belle's seeds, a bag of her secret fertilizer, and a turkey, until all that remained was Buford. Well, Belle arrived home flustered. "Some of the neighbors have gone and gotten turkeys." "Is that right?" said Fred. "I hope my secret's not out." Belle noticed her gardens. "Why, Fred, everything looks so nice. You've weeded and thinned and even trimmed." Well, within weeks, every house in the county had a spectacular garden. In the corner of each stood a turkey house with a fine, well-fed turkey, and behind every barn sat a barrel. "Fred, where do you think they found so many turkeys?" "So many turkeys?" Fred's face flushed. "Why, this site has never been prettier. You're right, it is good to have a turkey," she said. Fred patted Buford's head and nodded. Yes, he thought, though one turkey is plenty. But then Buford had other ideas. Oh my. Well, should we do a finger play? I've got not hundreds of turkeys. I've got 5 little hot dogs that are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. So 4 little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. 3 little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. 2 little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and one went bam. 1 little hot dog is cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and the one went bam. So no little hot dogs are cooking in the pan. The grease got hot and the pan went bam. Well, our next story is called One is a Feast for a Mouse, a Thanksgiving tale by Judy Cox, illustrated by Jeffrey Ibler, and is published by Holiday House. After Thanksgiving dinner, Mouse crept out of his hidey hole and looked around. The house was quiet. Dad snoozed in his chair with his book. Mom dozed in front of the TV. Outside, the kids played football in the crisp yellow leaves. Cat curled up by the fire. He yawned and stretched his stripy tail, and then he closed his greeny eyes and went to sleep. So Mouse scampered up the tablecloth. Can you see him there? Thanksgiving leftovers were still on the table, and there was so much to eat. Mouse saw a teensy tiny toothsome green pea all by itself under a plate. Give thanks, he thought. One will be a feast for me. So Mouse rolled the pea across the tablecloth to take it back to his hidey hole. But his eyes were bigger than his stomach, and he saw 6 leftover cranberries. glowing like rubies on a silver saucer. "I'll just take one," he said to himself. "One is a feast for me." So he balanced one cranberry on top of one pea and then started once again across the table to his hidey hole. But just then he saw 3 olives, black and shiny, in a dish. "I'll just take one," he thought. "One is a feast for me." So he put the olive on top of the cranberry on top of the pea and carried the tidbits across the table. And then he saw the carrot sticks, crunchy and munchy and orange. "I'll just take one," he thought. "One is a feast for me." So he stuck one carrot stick onto the hole in the olive and balanced both on top of the cranberry on top of the pea and started back to his hidey hole. There it is right there. And then he saw the mashed potatoes. Mouse potatoes, he thought. There was just one scoop left on the plate. "Oh, I'll just take the plate," Mouse thought. "What a feast I will have." So he balanced a plate of potatoes on top of the carrot stick that was stuck in the hole in the olive, on top of the cranberry, on top of the pea, and then Mouse started off across the table. And then he saw the gravy. Oh, brown and luscious in the silver gravy boat. Gravy for the mouse potatoes, he thought. "Oh, I must have that for my feast." So he balanced the gravy boat on top of the mashed potatoes, on top of the carrot that was stuck in the olive, on top of the cranberry, on top of the pea, and he started off. But then he spotted the pumpkin pie. One slice of pie, brown and dimpled with a collar of fluffy cream. So he balanced the pie on top of the gravy boat, on top of the mashed potatoes, on top of the carrot stick, stuck in the hole in the olive, on top of the cranberry, on top of the pea, and he started off across the table. Well, the pie slid, but Mouse caught it just in time. Mouse bobbled and bobbled across the tablecloth on the way to the hidey hole for his Thanksgiving feast. He didn't see Cat creeping, closer and closer. But Mouse saw the turkey. Oh, brown and juicy, surrounded with parsley. Oh, much was gone, but there was enough left for a mouse feast, or even 2. "I'll just add that, thought Mouse, and he carefully placed the turkey platter on the very top of his pile, on top of the pie, that was on top of the gravy, that was on top of the mashed potatoes, on top of the carrot stick stuck in the hole in the olive, on top of the cranberry, on top of the pea. And then, oh, the pie slid. Oh dear. So we have this. He started off across the table to his hidey hole, and there, at the table's edge, he met Cat, greedy-eyed and hungry, clawing up the table on the tablecloth. Mouse skedaddled to a stop. The turkey wobbled and slid and slipped, and Mouse danced to keep his feet balanced. He pirouetted like a ballerina and juggled like a platter spinner. But off slid the turkey, whoosh, with a plop, landing smack on Cat. And down crashed the pumpkin pie and the boat with the gravy. Down crashed the mashed potatoes with a clatter that woke Mom. Down fell the carrot stick, still impaled in the olive. Down went the crabberry, which rolled, leaving a red track across the tablecloth. Down went the pea, all catterwampus off the table and rolling onto the floor. Off scampered Mouse, quick as a bandit, back to his hidey hole ahead of Cat. He huddled in his hidey hole. His heart pitter-pattered. He peered out. Down came the broom on the stripy, greeny-eyed cat. "Bad kitty," shouted Mom. "Outside!" And she swept the cat out the door. Mouse looked around. Do you see him up here in his hidey hole? His whiskers were trembling with fright. No Thanksgiving feast for me, he thought. But just then, he spotted, glowing in the corner, one teensy tiny, round and toothsome, green and luscious pea. "Oh, give thanks! One is a feast for me!" And it was. Shall we have one more Thanksgiving story? This is called Silly Tilly's Thanksgiving Dinner. It's written and illustrated by Lillian Hoban and published by Harper & Row. It was Thanksgiving morning. Silly Tilly Mole was in her garden. The leaves were falling all around. "Summer is gone," she said. "I can't remember where it went." A robin flew past. "Goodbye, Tilly," he called. "It is cold and I'm going south." Mr. Bunny came hopping along the path. He had on a scarf and mittens. He was pulling earmuffs down over his ears. "I'm just practicing," said Mr. Bunny, "in case we get a frost tomorrow." "Oh dear," said Silly Tilly. "I forgot to remember that winter is coming. I forgot to remember that Thanksgiving is here." Tilly ran down the path to her house. "Wait, Mr. Bunny," she called. "I have something for you." "What did you say, Tilly?" asked Mr. Bunny. "I can't hear with these earmuffs on." "I said wait," called Tilly, and she turned back to look at Mr. Bunny. Well, she ran bump into a tree, and her glasses flew off. Mr. Bunny hopped over. "Did you say wait?" he asked. "I did," said Tilly, "but now my glasses are gone and I can't remember why I said it." "Oh, that's all right," said Mr. Bunny. "I will sit down here and wait for you to remember." So Mr. Bunny sat down. Thump. "Uh-oh," said Mr. Bunny. "I think I found your glasses." "Oh, thank you," said Tilly. "That's it," she cried. "I just remembered what I forgot. It is Thanksgiving. I am having Thanksgiving dinner for all my friends. Wait, I will get you your invitation." And she put on her glasses. She ran into the house, but her glasses were smudged and everything looked foggy. Said Tilly. "There is a fog in my house. I can't have fog in my house at Thanksgiving dinner." So Tilly opened the window to shoo the fog out, but the fog would not go away. You know why, right? "Tilly," called Mr. Bunny, "I am still waiting for my invitation." "Oh dear," said Tilly, "I forgot to remember where I put the invitations, and it is so foggy I cannot see where they are. I will get a broom and sweep the fog out." Tilly ran to the kitchen to get a broom, but she could not see and she bumped into the stove. "Oh, just in time to cook Thanksgiving dinner," said Tilly. So she ran to the cupboard to get pots and pans. But she forgot where she was going. She went to the table and got some cards instead. "Here are the invitations," she said. "Oh, Mr. Bunny," she called, "here's your invitation." Mr. Bunny hopped up to the door. "Are they all for me?" he asked. "Oh dear," said Tilly, I forgot. There's one for Mrs. Squirrel, and one for Mr. Woodchuck, and one for Mr. Chipmunk, and some more besides, but I forgot to remember to send them." "Oh, that's all right," said Mr. Bunny. "I will give them out on my way home." So Mr. Bunny looked at the cards, and the first card said, "Mrs. Squirrel's Acorn Jam. Mash a bowl of acorns, add a cup of sugar, stir and cook over low heat." Does that sound like an invitation? The next card was the recipe for Mr. Woodchuck's pine nut cake. And the next card was a recipe for Mr. Chipmunk's cranberry stew. And the next card was a recipe for Mrs. Field Mouse's oat bran pudding. And the last card? Why, the last card was a recipe for Mr. Bunny's sweet potato pie. Said Mr. Bunny. What a great idea. This is going to be the best Thanksgiving dinner. So Mr. Bunny hopped off to give out the cards, and Tilly hurried into the kitchen to start cooking. Now, where are all the recipes? She asked. She hurried over to her desk, but she couldn't see, and she forgot what she was looking for. Silly Tilly. Oh dear, she said, it is getting late and I am tired. I will sit by the fire and try to remember what I forgot. So Tilly sat down near the fire and fell asleep. And when she woke up, it was dark outside. Oh, almost time for Thanksgiving dinner, she said. Almost time for my guests to arrive. Tilly got up to set the table. Oh dear, she said, I just remembered what I forgot. It is so foggy I could not see to find the recipes. I never cooked Thanksgiving dinner. And Tilly started to sniffle and her eyes filled with tears. But just then the door flew open. Who is there? Called Tilly. She wiped her eyes and then she wiped her glasses and the fog was gone. She could see. She saw Mrs. Squirrel carrying a bowl of acorn jam. And she saw Mr. Woodchuck with a pine nut cake. She saw Mr. Chipmunk with a pot of cranberry stew. She saw Mrs. Field Mouse with some oat bran pudding. And she saw Mr. Bunny carrying a sweet potato pie. Oh, how lovely, cried Tilly. Now we can have Thanksgiving dinner. But just as they sat down to eat, they heard gobble, 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 and the front door flew open. In came Mr. Turkey with a big bag of corn. Tilly Mole, said Mr. Turkey, don't you know you can't have Thanksgiving without Mr. Turkey? Oh, Mr. Turkey, said Tilly, everybody knows that. I just forgot to give Mr. Bunny your invitation. So they all had Thanksgiving dinner. And then they sat around the fire and sang songs. And Mr. Turkey? Why, Mr. Turkey made his recipe for Mr. Turkey's best ever popcorn. And everybody said it was the best Thanksgiving ever. Even Tilly, who kind of forgot. Well, tonight our flannel board story is going to be on our green board, and there's something already on it. Huh. Do you know who that is? Why, that's Mr. Turkey. Well, Mr. Turkey was so sad, he lost the feathers that he once had. Now he wants us to help him find all the feathers of his kind. So we will look both high and low. We will find them, don't you know? Why, here's a red one. And here's a blue. And look, we found a green one too. Here's an orange one. And a yellow. Oh, soon he'll be a handsome fellow. Now we found a purple one, a black, and white. Oh, we're almost done. Now if we look up and down, I know we'll find a feather brown. And now Mr. Turkey, why, he is so glad because we found all the feathers that he had. So let's finish up with our Going to Bed book by Sandra Boynton. This is published by Little Simon. There they are. Are you ready? The sun has set not long ago. Now everybody goes below to take a bath in one big tub with soap all over. Scrub, scrub, scrub. They hang their towels on the wall and find pajamas, big and small. And with some on top and some beneath, they brush and brush and brush their teeth. And when the moon is on the rise, why, they all go up to exercise. And down once more, but not so fast. They're on their way to bed at last. The day is done. They say goodnight, and someone turns off the light. The moon is high, the sea is deep, and they rock and rock and rock to sleep. So those are our stories for tonight. Thank you for joining me and Bernard, and we hope we'll see you again for Bedtime Stories from Wood Library.